Galactic Council thought it had seen everything until the humans saved her.
It's the guards. They're back.
An ancient system activated. They thought it was a weapon. Turned out to be an adoption.
You're going to take away people's pets? Counselor, good luck with that.
It's unstoppable.
It's not just science fiction.
Report to the Council. Humanity has officially become the Galactic Nanny.
The thing about humans that the Galactic Council never quite grasped, despite their libraries of psychological profiles and terabytes of cultural archives, was our pathological need to protect anything we deemed cute. You'd think an advanced alien civilization capable of faster-than-light travel would have done a deeper dive before making first contact. But no. Somehow they managed to miss every single video of humans diving into frozen lakes to rescue dogs, bottle-feeding orphaned possums, rehabilitating injured squirrels in their garages, or spending their life savings on surgery for geriatric hamsters with tiny leg casts. Which is how I, Captain Parker Sparks, of the diplomatic exploration vessel Ali, ended up in this particular mess, standing in front of the Galactic Council's Department of Xenofauna Relations, with what appeared to be a sentient, iridescent jellyfish humming the Star Wars theme for the third time in 5 minutes. "Officer Zitclick," I said, trying to keep my voice calm and my hands visible. "Bubbles here is not a Class 4 restricted species. She's my emotional support alien." The insectoid bureaucrat's antennae twitched in what I had unfortunately learned was the universal signal for bureaucratic irritation. Their voice came out in a dry, clicking tone. "Captain Ali, there is no such classification as emotional support alien in our database." "Well, maybe," I said, reaching up to scratch what I hoped was Bubbles' version of a chin. "There should be." Bubbles emitted a series of high-pitched tones that sounded suspiciously like she was beatboxing now. She was clearly pleased, floating in lazy loops around my head, trailing faint sparkles behind her like a living disco ball. Zitclick's compound eyes reflected my face back at me a dozen times, each reflection managing to look more disapproving than the last. "This is the 8th non-terrestrial life form you have attempted to register this cycle." 7, I corrected. The sentient moss colony decided to live in my shower and filed for independent citizenship. "That is not better, Captain." I shrugged. What was I supposed to do? Bubbles had attached herself to me the second I deactivated the stasis field she'd been trapped in, deep in the remains of a derelict space station. I was there on a routine diplomatic mapping mission. She'd been stuck in some kind of force cube, probably for centuries, and the moment I freed her, she drifted over, stuck herself to my shoulder, and immediately started mimicking the ambient sounds around her. Her first attempt had been a garbled approximation of my comms unit alert tone. Then she got a hold of my music library. She hadn't stopped humming since. "You want me to leave her behind?" I asked. "After she imprinted on me?" After I filled out every form you requested, I pulled out my data pad and swiped through the list. Form X772 for non-terrestrial companion registration. Form Z115 for potentially telepathic species housing permits. And even Form Q999 for creatures that occasionally phase through solid matter. She does what? Only when she sneezes. And technically, it's more like she temporarily exists in multiple dimensions. Honestly, it's pretty convenient for getting through security checkpoints. Zeet-Click made a noise I'd come to identify as the precursor to a full-blown bureaucratic meltdown. I could see them preparing to launch into another citation of the Galactic Code of Xenofauna Transportation when the station lights dimmed. The crisp white glow flickered and shifted into a deep, ambient purple. A low hum began to vibrate through the floor. Everyone in the office paused. Bubbles stopped mid-hum, her colors shifting rapidly until they settled into a pulsing, solid blue. "That's new," I muttered. Every screen in the office flickered to life, the walls glowing with projections of ancient symbols scrolling in real time. They weren't any language I recognized from 5 years of diplomatic service. Zit-Click stared, their antennae slowly rising until they stuck straight out. "These are guardian glyphs," they said, voice unusually hushed. "That's impossible. They've been extinct for millennia." "Guardians?" I repeated, trying not to jostle Bubbles as she began to tremble slightly. "An ancient species," Zit-Click said, already moving to alert other officials, their voice rising in pitch. "They were said to have watched over the galaxy before any of us had even developed orbital propulsion. These glyphs, they're warnings, messages, code. This shouldn't be happening." I watched as other alien officials flooded into the room, their limbs flailing, mandibles clacking, feathers puffing, tentacles writhing, each one more panicked than the last. The glyphs didn't stop. If anything, they spread, crawling across every available screen and surface. I knew this wasn't about forms anymore. I'd stumbled into something big, something ancient. Bubbles, apparently recovering from the sudden sensory overload, started humming again. Softly, hauntingly. It was the theme from Jaws. "Not helping, girl," I muttered. "Not helping at all." The next few hours were a blur. A steady stream of alien officials flooded in and out of the Department of Xenofauna Relations like panicked bureaucratic ants. Alarms blared, systems flickered, and Bubbles cycled through increasingly inappropriate Earth melodies. By the time she hit Under the Sea for the 3rd time, I'd been escorted to a so-called secure holding area, basically the same waiting room with better chairs and more hidden surveillance devices. That's when Council Member Fee 427 arrived. If someone had taken a peacock, crammed it into an expensive legal suit, and jacked it full of espresso, you'd have a pretty accurate picture of V427. Their feathers were immaculately preened, their voice smooth and overly measured, like they were used to talking people into things they'd regret. The effect might have been impressive if Bubbles hadn't chosen that exact moment to launch into a spirited rendition of Be Our Guest. "Captain Ali," they said, head plumage rippling ominously. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Filed my pet registration papers slightly late. You've triggered the activation of an ancient warning system, they snapped, pointing toward the still glowing glyphs dancing across the wall displays. A system specifically designed to alert the galaxy about humans. I blinked. Come again? A holographic projector lit up between us. The glyphs transformed into translated text, line by line. As I read, I felt my eyebrows creeping upward. Warning, species designation, human. Exhibits aggressive protective behaviors toward perceived dependence. Will adopt anything. Attempts to separate humans from adopted companions may result in extreme retaliation, including but not limited to elaborate rescue missions, establishment of underground sanctuary networks, and strongly worded letters to planetary governing bodies. Current count of human-adopted species, 147,000 and rising. Good luck with that. I let out a low whistle. That actually explains a lot about our first contact. V427's feathers bristled. You mean when your species responded to meeting alien life by asking if you could pet it? In our defense, your envoy looked exactly like a space puppy. That was a highly respected elder of the Canid Confederation, who we gave belly rubs and treats. I nodded. Ambassador Goodboy still sends us holiday cards. V427 began pacing, feathers twitching with every step. This is precisely the problem. After that first contact, within one standard galactic year, your people established 50 interstellar animal shelters. You've got specialists in rehabilitating space whales, Captain. Space whales. Well, someone has to help them migrate through the asteroid fields, I pointed out. Besides, have you seen baby space whales? This is not a joke. I held up my hands. I'm not joking, I just think we're very enthusiastic, we care. The problem, they said, stopping dead in front of me, is that your latest rescue, Bubbles, isn't just a stray. According to our scans, she is the last known surviving member of the Guardian species. I turned to look at her. She was spinning slowly in place, tentacles flowing like seaweed, now humming, "I will survive," with a little more purpose than usual. Well, I said after a beat, that explains why she's so good at karaoke. V427 was not amused. Their feathers were now fully flared in what I'd come to recognize as the universal "I'm about to do something catastrophically stupid" display. Which is why, they said stiffly, the Council has voted to enact Protocol 47B, which is mandatory separation of all non-terrestrial life forms from human custody, effective immediately, for the greater good of galactic stability. I smiled, the kind of smile that made my crew nervous. I'm sorry. You want to do what now? We're going to take away all human-adopted alien companions, including your guardian. Bubbles stopped humming. The air shifted. A subtle drop in pressure, the faintest sense that the room had just taken a sharp breath in. And something inside me, some ancient, primal, deeply human mechanism, clicked into place. The same instinct that drove people to build custom wheelchairs for turtles, that compelled little old ladies to risk their lives for treed cats, that made us look at apex predators and go, "Yeah, I could cuddle that." "No," I said pleasantly, "I don't think you will." V427 blinked, all four eyes. I don't think you understand. This isn't a request. The council has— No, I said again, still smiling. You don't understand. Humanity has spent its entire history protecting things, loving things, anthropomorphizing everything with eyes. We once went to war to save pets during an evacuation. We build entire industries around pet fashion. We have dog photographers, counselor, full-time, with lighting setups. Bubbles drifted behind me, humming the Imperial March with a level of menace I hadn't previously heard from her. So let me be very clear, I continued. If you try to take our alien pets, you're not just going to start a diplomatic incident. You're going to have to deal with every human who's ever looked at a horrifying creature from deep space and said, "Oh, it's trying to kill me. How cute." V427's expression shifted, less outrage, more concern. They were starting to understand, but not fast enough. Behind me, Bubbles transitioned smoothly into Eye of the Tiger. That's when my comm buzzed. It was already starting. News in space travels fast, but news about someone trying to take away pets travels faster. By the time I opened the message, my entire comms feed was swamped. Videos, alerts, field reports. Operation Paw Patrol was already in motion. I turned to Bubbles. They're trying to take Mr. Snuggles, I said grimly, scrolling through a message from Dr. Patel on Europa. They're not ready for what happens next. Bubbles started humming the Mission Impossible theme, and somewhere in the distance, I swear I could hear a dog bark. The station was in full lockdown by the time Bubbles and I slipped into the maintenance tunnels. Officer Zit-Click, twitchy and uncharacteristically disheveled, had met us just outside the registration office, mandibles clacking in panic. I'd been ready to make a run for it, probably straight through a few walls if Bubbles felt like sneezing. But Zit-Click wasn't there to stop me. They were there to help. I've been processing human pet registrations for 3 cycles, they'd said in a low, urgent voice. I've seen what you people do for these creatures. I have 7 rehabilitated arthropodin silk spinners in my quarters. They make web art. I'm not letting the council take them. That was the moment I knew this was bigger than me. Bigger than Bubbles. The resistance wasn't just human anymore. Now we were moving through a narrow utility corridor lit only by flickering strips of backup power. Around us, other humans and their companions emerged from side passages and hidden alcoves. Travelers, scientists, transport pilots, all carrying, floating, or being trailed by their alien companions. A sentient sparkle cloud in a bow tie drifted beside a woman in an Earth wildlife hoodie. A man led a snail the size of a golf cart on a leash. No one looked particularly intimidated. They looked ready. Zit-Click guided us through an access hatch into a wide ventilation conduit. The council is calling this a humanitarian intervention, they said bitterly. Humanitarian? I snorted. They're trying to separate humans from their pets. The last time someone tried that, Mrs. Henderson's reformed criminal space rabbits staged a hostile takeover of a shopping mall. It still hasn't fully recovered, Bubbles added musically, humming a somber few bars of Mad World. Suddenly, the air shifted. A soft vibration moved through the tunnel, a low bass hum, like someone had tuned the space station to a new frequency. Bubbles began glowing. Not her usual twinkly luminescence. This was sharp, purposeful, a pulse of light that hit the walls and stayed there, etching lines, shapes, symbols. I reached for her instinctively. Bubbles? Is this a good light show or a bad light show? She didn't answer with music this time. Instead, the symbols on the wall rearranged themselves into a familiar configuration. Glyphs, like the ones that had appeared in the registration office. But now they were interactive. They moved with purpose, forming words in Galactic Common. Protocol Omega initiated. Guardian Defense Network activation sequence commencing. The tunnel groaned. Artificial gravity hiccuped. Lights along the ceiling switched from dim yellow to steady blue. Zit click froze. They whispered, "The Guardian Defense Network." It's a myth. "You're standing in it," I said. The glyphs spread down the corridor, illuminating hidden junctions and side passages. One blinked insistently, marking an alternate route. We followed quickly, passing a tangle of humans and companions en route. I spotted species I'd only seen in xenobiology textbooks, some listed as extinct, others marked as theoretical. All of them followed humans with the loyalty of rescue animals who'd been shown kindness for the first time in their lives. When we reached the end of the passage, it opened into what used to be a maintenance bay. It had been repurposed. Tables were pushed together to make a giant map. Terminals were covered in sticky notes and snack wrappers. Dozens of humans had gathered, along with their alien companions, and more were arriving by the minute. If you've never seen an emergency meeting of the Intergalactic Pet Parents Association, picture a PTA meeting crossed with the Mos Eisley Cantina, but everyone's passing around pictures of their babies, and half the babies are glowing, floating, or mildly radioactive. At the front of the room stood Barbara Watson, a retired librarian turned xenobotanist and founder of the galaxy's largest alien plant sanctuary. Her carnivorous vine, Frederick, was banging a gavel with one tendril while arranging a stack of procedural notes with another. "The IPA emergency session will now come to order," she called. I stayed near the back, watching Bubbles scan the room with slow pulses of blue light. Her music had stopped entirely, which was concerning. Dr. Meera Patel stood to give a report. Operation Paw Patrol is succeeding. We've evacuated over 70% of registered human companion pairs, thanks to sympathetic staff and unregistered exits. But she tapped her tablet, showing a map covered in red. The Council has called in the Regulatory Enforcement Division. A collective groan rippled through the room. Even the carnivorous plant wilted slightly. "The red teams," Meera said grimly. "No flexibility, no sense of humor. They make regular bureaucrats look like party planners." "But we have something they don't," said Tommy Chen, who was playing fetch with 3 crystalline quadrupeds that glowed whenever they caught the toy. "We have the power of love. And also Mr. Snuggles' pocket dimension. That was fair. Last I checked, the enforcement team sent to confiscate Snuggles was still stuck somewhere between space and a soft play area made of plasma foam. I stepped forward. "There's something else. About Bubbles. She's not just some cute alien I picked up. She's a guardian. The Guardian. and she's activated something. I think the Guardians were waiting for us." The room erupted into noise. Barbara banged the gavel. "Silence!" Zitclick stepped forward. "The Guardians were protectors. They once relocated an entire solar system because the microbes on one planet were too adorable. If Bubbles activated their defense network, it means she recognizes us as the next generation." At that moment, my comm chirped. "Incoming transmission." I opened it. V427's holographic form appeared, looking more ruffled than usual, like someone had run a vacuum over a very angry bird. "This resistance is futile," they snapped. "We've locked down every port, impounded every suspicious ship. We even seized that ridiculous human-built station shaped like a fire hydrant." "Hey," someone shouted. "That hydrant is a legitimate research facility for zero-G fetch physics. You have 1 hour to surrender all non-terrestrial companions, or we will escalate." The transmission cut out. Before the panic could set in, Bubbles floated to the center of the room and exploded with light. Not literally, but it sure felt like it. The Guardian glyphs erupted around her, forming not just symbols this time, but complex schematics, maps of the entire station network, highlighted in pulsing gold. "Are those?" Mira breathed, eyes wide. "Environmental controls," I said. "Every major system in the sector, every maintenance shaft, every airlock, camera, climate regulator." The Guardians hadn't just left behind warnings. They left us back doors. Barbara adjusted her glasses. Frederick placed a supportive tendril on her arm. "Well," she said, "I suppose it's time to show the Council why you don't mess with pet parents." Across the room, a silent charge ran through the crowd. The crystal dogs glowed with excitement. Mr. Snuggles hiccuped up another pocket dimension. Someone loaded a neural subroutine into a transmitter labeled Cuteness Barrage Protocol. And somewhere outside, the red teams were marching in, blissfully unaware that they were about to face the most terrifying force in the galaxy. A bunch of humans who'd just been told they couldn't keep their pets. The council chamber had never seen this much chaos, not even during the infamous vote on whether jelly-based species could serve on hydration-sensitive planets. Now it was full of red team enforcers trying to stand at attention while the artificial gravity pulled them into enthusiastic puppy-level bounces. One poor officer floated helplessly past the window, propelled by a gust of what smelled suspiciously like lavender-scented nap-time mist. The station's main computer had fully committed to its new playlist, piping a loop of acoustic ballads and gentle whale song through every corridor. And in the center of it all, Bubbles glowed like a miniature star. "This is your final warning," V427 announced from the central dais, trying and failing to smooth down their frazzled feathers. "Surrender the Guardian entity and all other non-terrestrial creatures in human custody, or what?" I asked, standing calmly in the middle of the chamber, Bubbles floating protectively over my shoulder. "You'll turn the gravity back on, reboot the cuddle settings, replace the Sarah McLachlan feed with death metal? Go ahead. See if that makes a difference." V427 didn't reply immediately. They were too busy watching every console in the room blink red with alerts. Across the station, across the sector, The Guardian Defense Network was fully active. Environmental systems tuned to pet-friendly conditions, surveillance feeds overridden with footage of humans snuggling their alien companions, detention blocks converted into open-air play zones with gravity cushions and stress relief chew toys. Impossible, one of the counselors muttered. This was supposed to be an ancient warning system, not a daycare revolution. You think the Guardians left a warning, I said, but they didn't. They left a blueprint, a contingency plan, a set of keys for us. Behind me, Bubbles floated higher. Her glow intensified until the room dimmed in comparison. Then the symbols came, not just as text or code, but as memories. We all saw it, every being in the chamber. The Guardians discovering the first alien life forms and instinctively building sanctuaries to protect them. Constructing star systems with optimized climate conditions for even the most delicate organisms. Guiding fledgling species, not with domination, but care. Until the day they realized they would not last forever. And so they searched the stars for a successor. And they found Earth. Images poured across the chamber like an ancient prophecy fulfilled. Humans rescuing three-legged dogs, children hand-feeding orphaned batlings, a man constructing a heated dome for his arthritic space turtle. We had no unifying mission, no interstellar destiny, no great empire, just a ferocious, irrational, unshakable need to protect the helpless. And the Guardians saw it, and they said, "These are the ones." When the memories faded, the room was silent. Even the Red Team officer stood frozen, staring at the final message the Guardians had left behind. "Congratulations. You have been chosen as a forever home." It was Bubbles who broke the silence, softly, gently, playing a stripped-down minor key version of "My Heart Will Go On." And it was devastating, the kind of music that made you remember every childhood pet you'd ever loved, lost, or whispered secrets to under the covers. "Oh, stars," V427 whispered, sagging into their chair. "That's not fair." The rest of the council wasn't faring much better. One member clutched a small, squeaking creature that had wriggled out of their sleeve. Another was wiping their compound eyes with the tissue provided by Frederick the Vine, who had arrived with Barbara in tow. "I suppose," said one counselor, sniffing, "we could review Protocol 47B, perhaps introduce some exceptions." "Exceptions?" Barbara's voice crackled over the comm, now entirely under her control. "Half your enforcement teams are hiding pets in their uniforms. You want regulation? Fine. Let's regulate. But we're starting with common sense and a standardized cuddle protocol." The chamber doors opened behind me. More officers poured in, some Red Team, some from other departments, each accompanied by an alien creature of some kind. There were reformed void beasts being led on leashes made of starlight, floating cats that communicated entirely through synchronized blinking. One officer was carrying a small creature made of living crystal that changed colors when petted. Then the Red Team commander stepped forward, stern, polished, intimidating as ever, until they reached into their armor and pulled out a photo. "This is Squeakers," they said quietly. "A human helped me rescue her from a quantum storm 2 cycles ago. I didn't plan to keep her, but she chose me." The ripple effect was immediate. Officers around the chamber followed suit. Photos, names, creatures poking out of bags, from under cloaks, inside helmet compartments. We were never going to enforce this, the commander admitted. Not really. You can't separate someone from their family. V427 stood frozen, feathers limp, gaze locked on Bubbles. Your regulations were always going to break, I said gently, because you forgot something important. Love doesn't care about policy. It should have ended there, but the Guardians had one more surprise. Bubbles rose higher, spinning slowly, and began to project one last data burst. Symbols danced through the chamber, but this time they weren't warnings or defense schematics. They were care guides, detailed, comprehensive instructions on how to properly nurture, feed, communicate with, and enrich the lives of every species the Guardians had ever encountered. Notes on behavioral triggers, preferred napping textures, recommended lullabies. It was millennia of accumulated knowledge handed over not as a weapon, but as a gift. One counselor stammered, staring at the display. This could advance xenobiology by centuries. Or, I added, it could finally help us stop treating compassion like a liability. The council voted, unanimously. Protocol 47B was suspended, pending full rewrite, and I was appointed as the first director of the newly formed Interstellar Animal Welfare and Protection Service. Officer Zitclick handled the paperwork with more enthusiasm than I'd ever seen in a bureaucrat. Bubbles celebrated by performing Hakuna Matata for a crowd of new recruits. The red teams were reassigned. Their first mission, constructing the galaxy's largest zero-G dog park. Mr. Snuggles was made an official consultant on pocket dimension safety regulations. And V427, after a swarm of hyper-organized space butterflies moved into their office and began alphabetizing their files, their stance on human-animal companionship mellowed considerably. The Guardian warning still scrolls across official channels, but it has a new line now. Update. Humans have been officially designated as the galaxy's pet sitters. Resistance is futile. They will find you, and they will pet you. As I stood aboard the Ali, preparing for our first sector-wide welfare inspection, I looked over at Bubbles. She was humming Circle of Life at full volume and teaching a group of newly registered companions how to harmonize. Badly, joyfully, loudly. You knew this would happen, didn't you? I asked her. She spun lazily and let out a soft musical trill that sounded suspiciously like smug satisfaction. Somewhere out there, I like to think the Guardians are watching. Proud, relieved, they found a species so determined to protect life, we once domesticated wolves just by looking them in the eyes and offering a sandwich. And when the time came, we didn't seize power. We opened our arms. Silly names, baby voices, snack pockets, and cuddle piles, forever homes. We were ready.